What's up, guys? It's Flash Carter, aka Jared, and today I'm here showing you how I got into medical school, sharing some tips, some advice, mistakes I made that I don't want you to repeat, and everything you need to know for getting into a medical school. So this journey is going to begin way back when you start your post-high school education. Now, I've seen people take classes at community college and go to other colleges, stay at the same four-year college like I did at Temple University the whole time, switch between four-year colleges. It really doesn't make a difference as long as you get the credits you need and the courses you need. So the first thing you're going to have to decide when you go basically to any college is what major you want. And now this is a big decision, not because it affects your ability to get into medical school, but it affects the classes that you'll be taking. And you'll see what I'll talk about here in a second. If we go on over here, these are the top pre-med majors in college. So a good amount of them are going to be biology majors. You're going to meet a lot of kids saying they want to go to medical school, and they're going to tell you they're a biology major or a chemistry major. Seen a lot of those. Biochem, same thing. All the sciences. Me personally, when I was applying to medical school, I didn't have any guidance, any advice on that, and I thought that I should pick the one that sounds the most medical. Now, in my school, that was public health, or health professions was my official major under the umbrella of the School of Public Health. What I didn't realize was applying for a major in the School of Public Health meant I had to take all the public health classes, which wasn't terrible because I got things like psychology, which I need for the MCAT, anatomy and physiology 1 and 2, which never hurt. But on top of that, I did have to do a decent amount of other classes, such as like disease prevention and control, epidemiology, a couple research classes, and that was definitely one of the most credit-heavy sections of my college curriculum right there. Now let me explain to you why this might not be ideal. For me personally, I didn't seem to struggle too much with public health. I enjoyed it, found it interesting, and thought it was something really cool to take. Now, because those are my major classes, the classes that I were taking as my electives was my biology, my organic chemistry, my physics, things like that, because they weren't required under my major. Whereas if you take a biology, those classes are going to mostly be required, and then once you get those classes done, you can maybe take some GPA boosters, you could take some easier classes. I wasn't so fortunate with that. Didn't see it through all the way, but also I didn't have the guidance. So that's why I'm trying to tell you guys now, you could pick any major, just be aware that the major you pick, you're going to also have to take the prerequisite courses for the MCAT regardless if they're offered in that major or not as a requirement. So for me, you'll see a little later on my transcripts, I have a bunch of public health classes, and I killed most of those, got A's in just about every one, and that did help my overall GPA as well. But you could take something that you might find easier, more interesting. I've seen people in medical school who are Spanish majors, so it really, there's no limit to what you could be for a medical school major. Now, moving on here to the next point, I have these prerequisites. You want to make sure you're taking the correct classes. Almost any college will have one of these timeline and recommended courses. If you want to go to med school, obviously we're looking at medicine here, and they're going to tell you the courses specifically at that college. So this is the one that you're looking at now, the college you're attending, what courses you need to take to be prepared for the MCAT and get into medical school. Now you want to look very carefully at this because I've known people in the past who have taken a biology course and they took the wrong biology course. So they spent a whole semester wasting their time, their money, all for a course that wasn't even going to be part of the MCAT. And these numbers are going to change from obviously school to school. So you want to look at your school's most of them will have a pre-professional health department, something like this, health advising, and they will have dentistry, OT, PT, all these things, pharmacy, medicine. You want to look at what's required, and most of the time, you're going to have to take 2 semesters of biology, 4 semesters of chemistry, 2 organic, 2 inorganic, biochemistry, psychology, sociology, 2 semesters of physics, as well as some other recommended courses. They'll take math, calculus is very highly recommended, good to show on there. English, they want to see you taking some English courses. That was a gen ed that I had to take. I got that one covered. So again, you're going to want to see how you could fit these things into your schedule, fit which one works where, oh, this can work for my gen ed and it can work for my English prereq. Let's take that. So obviously you want to pick and feel with that. Their recommended timeline is getting everything done in 3 years. Now, personally, you can do this. This was originally my plan, but I think this is really, really tough, especially for me. I had to deal with COVID during my freshman and sophomore year. All my classes were online, so that really put a wrench into things. But if you're looking for a 3-year plan, this is the plan you want to take. And I personally would recommend a 4-year plan. You have to have some room for error. During COVID, I had to withdraw from a class. If you have to, I would say withdraw before taking a bad grade. Bad grade would be anything lower than a B, because bringing up our next point here, every single point matters, guys. You need to realize that when you're applying to medical school, there are tens of thousands of applicants, and they are taking literally double digits, sometimes maybe 100 kids per class. So that's like a 1% acceptance rate. So when everyone is so competitive, everyone is so good, every point matters. I used to think it was silly, if I got 1 point off on something I really didn't feel I deserved a point off on, to go up to the professor and ask, hey, could you please explain to me this marking or whatever. But sometimes, you guys, you'd be surprised. Professors, they're people too. They make mistakes. Oh, I didn't mean that, Jared. Let me give you a point back on that. Every little point on every little thing matters. If you could get anything to do, if you're at an 89.3 and you tell your professor, is there any little extra credit work I could do to get that to an 89.5, bump that up to an A minus. Every single point matters. Everything goes into your GPA. And guys, you cannot take it serious enough. All right, there's no such thing as a joke class. Every point literally matters. Even the most easiest classes in your minds. You got to make sure you're doing the work, showing up when attendance is required, all of that stuff, making sure you're getting the maximum possible grade, because that is your key to getting in. Your first foot in the door is having the numbers, and you need the numbers to get anywhere else. Moving on now, time management is a huge thing, guys. I'm going to go ahead and pull up here what my schedule was looking like my senior year when I was studying for my MCAT, while wrestling, while taking biochemistry, advanced physics 2, a 4,000 level research class. As you can see, I was budgeting near 12 hours a day to this kind of stuff, guys. If you include also, I had an hour break in for the gym every day and laundry every now and then. But guys, every single day I was hitting those books on the MCAT. We'll get into the MCAT specifically a little bit later, but time management is key, guys. You want to have your stuff scheduled out. I at one point was doing it, as you can see, from time slots when I wanted to have certain things done. That gets kind of tricky to adhere to, but guys, you need to have those very, very strict time management skills if you're going to want to succeed and make it to medical school. It is a grind. It's a lot of sacrificing, but it is worth it in the end. I'm still not there, and I'm telling you it's worth it. So guys, trust me, you're going to have to stick with it. But moving on to my next thing now, volunteering and shadowing, two of the biggest words you're going to hear. Let's go ahead and take a look here at my application, and we're going to take a look at just all the stuff that I had. So work and activities, that's going to count for all of the stuff that you do in your 4 years of college. I actually have the AAMC and the AA comas pulled up. These are DO and MD. One last note on that, guys. Don't stress about that. I thought I had the scores to get into MD, currently only in at DO schools right now. However, I think that's partially due to my error in applying, which I'm going to explain a little bit later on during the timeline. And I didn't get stuff in soon enough. And I'll get all that out in a little bit. But first, let's talk about these working activities. This is going to be what really separates you. Everyone's going to have good grades. Everyone's going to have decent MCAT scores if you're applying. This is where you get to be an individual. You get to show them who you are. So as you can see, I have a ton of stuff here. You really want to get that shadowing, that exposure to medicine directly, where you are with a physician. I happen to be with 4 different physicians in my time in college. I would spend a different summer with a different physician each year. So I was with an internal medicine physician. I was with a DO once. I was with a cardiologist. I was with a pediatrician. So you want to get to see a little bit of everything. I was even observing cardiac catheterizations inside of a hospital. That was really cool. Get to see a lot of different things. Get that exposure. Get those hours in, guys. Very, very important that you have that medical exposure. Now, on top of that, they're going to want to see you doing work that is for the community, not for yourself, not for benefiting your application. Things like Habitat for Humanity, things like volunteering at a hospital in a non-medical point of view. So that's like getting patients magazines, books, food, things like that, non-medical capacities. Then you're going to want to have some other things that differentiate yourself, some work you could put in there, show that you're able to balance time management. Like I said, very big thing in medical school. Show that you can live a life while still being a medical student, as tough as that may be. You want to be involved in clubs. AMSA is a great club, American Medical Students Association. Get involved in stuff at your college. Get to those higher up positions. They love seeing leadership, things like that. You want to put any awards, anything you got on here, and you're actually allowed to mark 3 as your most meaningful, and you can write extra about those. So for me, I put one of my shadowing, one of my volunteering, and then the fact that I was trained as a professional wrestler, I put as one big one right there. So my thing, that was my X factor, being the pro wrestler. Now I want to talk about that a little more. How can you separate yourself? What are you going to say if you get that interview that says, this is the guy that we need at our school? Because they're going to hear a million times, I want to help people. I want to be a good person, this and that. Why should they pick you? What makes you different from the rest? So for me personally, that was the professional wrestling. Now, I thought that was going to hinder me because I spent so much time. I mean, you can see I put time down here. What did I put? 1,000 hours, at probably 5,000 hours, if not more. I didn't want to make it seem like I was BSing them, though, but you guys honestly know, if you're in the wrestling world paying dues, I mean, you spend whole days at shows sometimes, even more. It's a lot of work. So to be able to manage both of those was really good on my part, I felt like. And I was able to show them that through my other life, my wrestling, I was still giving back. I was still contributing to the community. What do I mean by that? Well, I do things such as charity and fundraisers every year for the Pink Hat campaign. I participate in a lot of charity shows where we donate our pay for that day to a bigger cause, things like that. You really want to show them that even if you're doing something else, it's something for the better of the community. It doesn't have to be involved in medicine. It doesn't have to be involved in sciences or research or any of that. Like I said, you want to show that you're doing stuff to help people, to be a good person, just the humane side of you, basically. And I feel like the wrestling was a really great way to do that. As you guys know, love seeing you guys at shows. I'll take as much time as I need to take pictures with you guys all, sign as much stuff as possible. Literally, I'm usually signing stuff until they force me to go back after the intermission because I'm that busy with you guys. But that's just my X factor, I would say. So let's move on to the next point here. MCAT prepping. This is the big one, guys. This is probably why a bunch of you clicked on that video. This is the MCAT we're talking about now. So I won't hide anything. My MCAT score right here, boom, 510. Thought I could have did a little better on Psych Soc. I was scoring higher on that. Messed up on test day a little bit, but it is what it is. I scored higher on Chem Phys than I thought I would. But let's talk about the MCAT for a sec. Or for more than a sec, actually, because this is the most important part that we've talked about right now. You want to set up a new email immediately. Make it something simple, your first name, last name, favorite number, something like that at gmail.com. Because if you're like me, when you're in college, you are getting spammed with emails, stuff's getting buried, you can't find anything. You want to make a new email exclusively for MCAT and medical school application purposes. Let's talk about some other things organization-wise. I personally had a really good online program that I used. I used Blueprint. I would recommend it. It's very pricey. I paid nearly $10,000 for my service. It was a 6-month course, and I thought it did a really good job. Now, do you have to do that? No, but let me give you some advice from things I've learned from that. They'll give you lots of cheat sheets and whatnot, yields of what kind of topics are on the test, on the latest ones that they've taken and stuff. But personally, I was always a pen and paper guy. So I would make, all of my most important equations. I'd write them out like this in interesting ways to remember. And your best friend, guys, your best friend when you're remembering facts, discrete facts on the MCAT is going to be your mnemonics. So, sometimes you got to make them a little not dirty, but you know what I'm saying, a little explicit to help you remember them. Anything works. Whatever sticks in your brain will help you stick in your brain. There's some here that you'll see are pretty, standard ones, and they'll be found all over Reddit. I recommend you go on the MCAT subreddit for mnemonics like this, not for other stuff. There's a lot of negativity on there, but they are very good for helping with cheat sheets, stuff like that. So as you can see, I have a bunch of ones right here. This is a good one right here. Flashcard or B Pullen for the parts of the stomach. But no, like I said, guys, lots of good mnemonics out there. Whatever helps you get it down, get it down. But mnemonics are something that's going to make things way easier for you. Okay, going on to the next thing now. Getting a good tutor. My tutor was really good, really understanding, happened to like professional wrestling, so we were able to bond on that. But he was really good with helping me out, time management wise, finding out what worked for me and what didn't. What I mean by that, when you're studying, you're going to see certain things aren't as effective as they will be for other people. For example, for me, I started in November. My MCAT was originally going to be in March, moved it back to May. And the first like 2-3 months, I would just have, I actually believe I have it right here. I would just be going through all of my notes and just taking notes after notes after notes after notes after notes, right? Going through DNA, going through chemistry, electrochemistry, all this different stuff, and just taking notes. And then around January, I started taking 8-hour-long full practice length tests, which is a very important thing because these are going to be your most accurate measures as to how you're doing currently. And my score really wasn't going up the first couple times. And I noticed that I was, taking in the information, but not really retaining it in the way I needed to. And that's because I was jotting down notes and I was going over the notes, but I wasn't answering questions. So for me, I ended up talking to another medical student, and he really made a big difference because he recommended UWorld to me. Now, UWorld is a really good program. You got to pay for it also, but it gives really good explanations as to why the answers are the way they are. And I would say they probably have the most accurate questions out of any of the services that I use for the MCAT. Now, Blueprint, which I used, they're not terrible, but they're a little tougher. I will say that. Once you get to the official AAMC practice MCAT tests, which are the ones that they'll supply for you, I believe there's 5 if you include the example one. Those ones were easier than the Blueprint ones. However, because of that, the curves are harder. So you have to get more questions right to get the same score, if that makes sense. These are all things that you'll discover on your own as you see going through it. But don't be discouraged at your first few test scores because it is a really hard adjustment. And it is very tough to sit there for 8 hours and have to take the test. But what I would do, this is personally what I would do. Simulate the testing environment to the best of your ability. So that test, it's going to be at 8 a.m. in the morning. I'd wake up at 7:30. I'd have 2 espressos. Never drink caffeine like that in my life, but I wanted to have my stomach getting used to it so I wouldn't get a stomach ache on the day of the test. So everything that I did was the same exact every other Saturday. I would take that 8-hour-long practice test. I'd have headphones on the whole time, noise canceling. It would be just total silence and nothing for like 8 hours. Get done with that by like the late-ish afternoon, and then you have the rest of the Saturday to enjoy off. And then usually I would take the day off after a long test because it's just really debilitating, guys. And I would have mine on Saturdays, and then sometimes I would have shows Saturday night, and then I would be really tired Sunday, so I would just take off like that. But like I said, find what works for you. For me personally, I liked using those resources, and Jack Weston was my go-to for cars. Got to get those cars in every day. Lots of repetition helps with that. And you identify patterns in the questions. You identify trends in like how the answers are given to you. And it gets a little bit easier. Not a lot, but it gets a little bit easier the more and more practice you get. Having a support system really helps as well, guys. I won't lie. There's times where I was taking that 8-hour test. I hit that submit button after the whole day of sitting there in my room, and you get a score that is disappointing or, God forbid, even lower than the last score that you had. Happened to me once or twice. And it's just a lot of emotions go through you. There's rage, there's disappointment, there's, am I ever going to be able to do this type feeling. Having that support system really helps, guys. I had my roommate was very encouraging. My parents obviously stuck with it. And for me, number one, I know this is going to sound corny to you guys who watch the wrestling and everything and have made it this far, but my tag team partner, Jay Evans, this is probably the point in life where we really became best friends because, everyone knew that I was dedicating my life to this. Every Saturday at a show, people would be like, oh, how was this week? I saw you posting, you had 12 hours of work and then 13 hours of work. Everyone's like, blah, 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 But when I would talk to Jay, he would remember, specific things I was struggling with, like just like my exact scores and stuff, and it showed like he really was caring and stuff. So that really meant a lot to me. And to have him believing in me, because he was constantly telling me how smart I was and I was going to do it, made me feel like I could do it. And that was just like the biggest inspiration for me, I would say. So then once you get done with all that, once you're on the road to taking your MCAT, getting that score you want, hopefully in the 520s if you're nailing it, next comes the not tricky stuff, but the more like tedious stuff. So PPHA, we talked about them before over here. Most of your schools are going to have one of these, right? Now, in my experience, I had 5 advisors over the course of my 4-year college year for PPHA. They just kept leaving, kept going, firing, getting transferred, who knows, whatever. But then at the very end, what this organization is going to do for you, if they're similar in most colleges, I believe they are, they're going to make you compile all your stuff. So, your GPAs, your transcripts, all your stuff that I was basically showing you from your application over here, as you can see. Which, by the way, let me put out there my scores so you know. My math science was a 3.48. My overall was a 3.7. My other classes were 3.93. Like I said, I did really good in the other classes. That's your chance to pick up that GPA. And my MCAT was a 5.10. So there's my scores for you guys. But like I was saying, these guys are going to want to keep you on track kind of your 4 years of college. Make sure you're compiling everything that you need to have there. And then at the end, they're going to give you a big committee interview with one of their guys. Talk to them. That's basically like how a med school interview is going to go. They're going to ask you, why do you want to do this? Blah, blah, blah. A bunch of questions like that about your resume. We'll get more into that on interviews in a little bit. But my one advice with dealing with PPHAs or PPHOs, whatever they want to call it, is only rely on yourself. All right, because my PPHA personally did mess up like a lot of things. They messed up the school list I wanted to send it to. They told me, there was 55 students this year that were doing this, and 54 of them got it right, and we got yours wrong. You're always going to hear excuses, guys. And believe it or not, in the real world, no one cares about these excuses. They care about deadlines, and they want stuff done when they want it done. So that's why I always say have a backup plan. Stay on top of things. If you don't hear from them within 2 days, email them, call them, whatever. Be a hound, be a pest. It doesn't matter. This is your entire future you guys are depending on right now. You need to have what needs to get done. So stay on top of everyone, because there's going to be a few things out of your control. This is where letters of recommendation are going to come in. Letters of recommendation are very important. You need to have someone who knows you well, who's going to, gas you up really good, make you seem like the best candidate possible, highlight your strengths really, really well. And for that, I would recommend 1 or 2 professors that you really, really have a good connection with. I mean, there was one chemistry teacher that I had freshman year. I was with him in his office up until I graduated senior year, almost every day, talking, studying, whatnot. You form these relationships, and it's really good to have them for moments like this, especially when they have, doctorate degrees, PhDs. These are things that could help out, that could look impressive on your behalf. And then I would recommend having people from volunteering write you letters of recommendation, as that's another aspect of your life that they could touch on. And then I would have physicians write you letters of recommendation. Physician letter of recommendations go above all else. I had all 4 that I spent the summer with each write me one. All very nice, very grateful for them for that. And, you got to be yourself. You can't just be, the typical stick in the mud type medical student. Have a personality. Be yourself. Don't be afraid to, be outgoing, do things. Don't operate on patients over here before you know anything, but you know what I'm trying to say. Just be yourself, have some personality, and, let loose a little bit when you're around these people so they know the real you. Moving on here. What school should you apply to? So go into my big list here. You can see a lot of schools here that I applied to and got denied from were ones I didn't even have a shot to getting into. So I would do a little more extensive research on this. I was kind of rushed. Like I said, I took my MCAT in May, and then I took my AMCA's application nearly a month and a half after that to get processed. So the first thing I would do, even if you don't have your MCAT score, is set up all your AMCA's application stuff, because all this stuff, your coursework, your biograph, all this stuff takes a lot of time. You got to write for work and activities. You got to write, not an essay, but, a decent amount for each of these. why you think it's important, stuff like that, more for the important ones and stuff like that. But you want to have that all ready to go, I would say at the latest by the start of May, because I didn't have that ready till the start of June when I got my MCAT score back. Then I had to wait another month and a half for it to get processed. So then I didn't start getting secondaries until the start of August, which is where I really feel like my downfall came in, because then I didn't start writing those secondary essays till August. And the ones where I did DO and I started getting those secondaries in July, I feel like I heard back a lot quicker, because that month from July to August is when they're getting swarmed with secondaries. So I would say on top of that, also know the schools you're applying to. Some of these I wasn't even eligible for because they require you having connections or ties to the state they're in. My dad just wanted me to apply to like literally everywhere. It was his credit card, so I didn't mind, but that would cost like thousands of dollars. So if you don't want to do that, like, I would highly recommend looking into it more beforehand. So once you get those applications, I would make a table kind of like this. I have my passwords and usernames here blacked out, links to their portals, and then link to a secondary document. So this is where I wrote all of my secondaries. Now you can see that I literally had to write like hundreds of essays this summer. And most of these are unique. You know, you want to have ones that apply to what their mission is, what their focus is at that medical school. So very common trend, very common theme is serving underserved populations, things of that nature, addressing health disparities. And those are things that you could show in your application through volunteering, through shadowing, and through other kinds of work that you care about, that you want to make a difference in. So that's very important to always tie it back into the rest of your application, how they apply to your goals and how your goals align with that of that medical schools. So once all that starts happening, you can expect to start hearing back from schools around like September, October. Some denials will come in right away. Always happens like that. And then some will, waitlist you, or you might get some interviews. If you get an interview, that's a really good sign, because that means you're this close. And now they know you have the skills, the intelligence. They want to see your personality. They want to see what kind of person you are. They want to talk to you. They want to say, would a patient feel comfortable talking to this person? Now, the best advice I could give you on interviews would be have an idea of the things they're going to try to ask you, reviewing the mission statements of the school, things like that. Interview days are usually pretty long. They give you a whole orientation type thing. You meet with all different people from the school, and then you have your interview. Could be in person, could be virtual. Either way, you want to look professional, shave. That's what I did, wearing a nice suit, have the hair nice, gelled back, looking very good. You want to talk professional. You want to think before you speak. When they ask you a question, take a second, think about how you want to answer it, then respond. Always try to be genuine, try to be honest. You don't want to BS them or give them answers they could obviously fact check and see that you were lying about from your application. But once you get to that point, you're almost in, guys. Just got to be confident in yourself. Be confident in the answers that you give. Because if you start going back on your answers and, you counter another answer with a future one and they don't make sense, then that's some stuff that they're not going to like. You want to be confident in yourself. You want to say something and you want to mean it. So, guys, that's really all I have at this point. Any questions at all, I would be happy to help, happy to let you guys know anything more on my experience. As of right now, I am in at 4 DO schools, waiting to hear back from MD schools. Like I said, I think I might have messed up on the timeline with that. But like I said earlier, DO and MD, there's really no difference. Once you get in, it's all about your grades and your board scores, and then how you do on that determines what residency you could get into. So I'm sure, just like I'm telling you guys advice, I'll be watching advice on all of that soon. And the cycle just keeps on going, guys. It's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of sacrifice. But in the end, it is worth it. You got to see the light at the end of the tunnel, guys. Like I said, any questions, leave them down below. Let me know. Feel free to reach out. This is Jared Flash Carter, and I hope you guys get into medical school.